was in the interest of the North. And if I may take you to one of the things he said in that statement, which perhaps you could address, is that he had accused this administration of impoverishing the people of the North, which is why he believes that a Northern candidate would understand the issues of the North. And while you say that you don't, only push for the interest of the North, I know that the Arewa Consultative Forum holds engagements with candidates.
In this channel will not only make you laugh, but will also bring you current and undiluted and unfiltered news as it is hot. Do you know that any news you do not find in this channel does not exist? And that news is not a news. Uncle P, say no more. Guys, let's get into this
Political paradigm.
Thank you very much.
I think we'll just start off with this statement so that we clarify it once and for all, because I understand that the forum is disappointed in that statement. But the question would be, is it the message that the forum is disappointed in, or is it more about the fact that it was done without consultation?
Well, the objective and the principles of the ACF are very clear. We don't go into partisan issues. We may be political, but certainly not partisan, because members of the forum are from various political shades. So that is not the position of the ACF. We don't tell people, we don't tell the parties who to put there as their candidates, and we don't even tell people who to vote for. What we tell people is these are the kind of qualities of leadership that are required. And we normally, before elections, we even spread pamphlets and so on, and tell them, look, for a leader, choose these qualities, A, B, C, D, E. I want to only talking about leaders at national level, but even at subnational level. So to come out and say that we're going to be sectional in our choice was unfair to the forum. And even though he did not directly say we're going to vote for a Northern candidate in 2007, but it was inferred from the statements he made. But that's not why, that's not the only reason he was suspended. The major reason was that normally when a chairman is given his opening remarks, it should be as brief as possible. And it shouldn't contain anything controversial, because these will be things that will be discussed during the meeting, and then the communique of the ACF that should now be published, if that is our position. But he read his speech, a 10-page speech, and it contains some of those controversial statements that were not actually the position of the forum, and the fact that nobody had seen the statement before he read it. If we had seen it, we would have cautioned him and said, look, take this out and that.
Well, so I'm guessing that he is not allowed to state his opinion, because some would say that this is his opinion.
Yes, as the chairman of ACF, I'm the Secretary General of ACF. I don't just, I may have my own personal position on issues, but I will not say it in that respect. Earlier on, there have been other chairmen that have been removed from the ACF. If we recall, the first chairman of the ACF was Alhaji MD Yusuf, or the former IG of police. He was removed. Not even on the document that he had, but on the assumption that he is sharing some of the information he takes from the forum with the then president, Obasanjo. And then there was the consensus that, look, his closeness to Obasanjo was, who was the president then, might not be in the interest of the forums, or at least his own position as a chairman, to be able to lead the forum in the event that there's an issue with government. He was removed. He was a person of stature. He was a former IG and a great influence in the country. Another chairman that was also removed was General IBM Haruna. There was this assumption, or rather accusation, that he was then close to Jonathan, and he was discussing quite a number of things with the then president. And then he was, he had to step down as the chairman. There's another chairman who also was asked to leave, even though he was not even inaugurated. Gabriel Adugu. Gabriel Adugu was nominated as the chairman. Before far, he took a letterhead of the forum, wrote a letter to the Chief of Defense Staff, and involving Kogi politics with details of Governor Yahya Bello and some military officers that are posted there and how they are collaborating. That's not the position of ACF. So he was removed. So this is the first time. And this chairman is not removed actually. This chairman is suspended. Pending when he comes and clarifies those things. What we expected was that when the press came in shouting that the North was not going to vote for Tinubu, the North is going to bring its own candidate, we saw them, he will just immediately call the press and say, this is not my position. But since he didn't, we thought he shouldn't be confused with the position of the ACF.
So that was where I was also going to, because some question how grave an offense this is, because you've talked about the other chairmen that were removed, and it would seem that they really went partisan, and that's why they were removed. But this one, some say you should have probably cautioned him and probably issued a retraction or compelled him to issue a retraction, at least politically speaking, so it doesn't suggest that there's some form of rancor within the ACF. Because as it stands now, there are those who say that he, as national chairman, would have loyalists, followers, who would be aggrieved with this kind of action that you've taken as a forum.
He wasn't removed, he's suspended. That means, and in the release, there is the recommendation that a committee has been set up to investigate matter. So the moment it's clear, then there's no problem. But you see, you cannot come out and talk on behalf of the forum anyhow. If it was not on the platform of the forum, if you had gone to some meeting of MBA or some meeting of SANS and so on, and he makes a statement like that, all we'll ask him is that we hope this is not referring to ACF. Aduku used the letter of the ACF. If he had used the letter ahead of Kogi Elders Forum and said he had gone to see the SDS on the Kogi matter, it wouldn't have been a problem. So the issue is within the platform to drag us into partisanship, drag us into issues that are not in our objectives.
You know, I don't know, I may sound like I'm playing the devil's advocate here, but we're just trying to get clarification, because I understand that the Arewa Consultative Forum is a socio-cultural group that seeks to promote northern interests, primarily, I believe so.
Within the Nigerian context, yes.
But primary, because we have the Afenifere, we have the Ohanese, and they seek to promote...
Unfortunately, we're not like Afenifere or Ohanese in Igbo.
Oh.
These are tribal organizations. They represent the interests of a particular tribe. In the north, we have all shades of tribes, including Yorubas and so on. So we're not exactly like that. Our ACF is defined by geography, you know, not certain language or certain culture. If you're going to showcase the northern culture, you'll be surprised that we'll spend days if every single... I'm from Gombe State. Gombe State is the smallest state in the north. We have 11 local governments. We have 23 distinct ethnic tribes, ethnic groups, 23. So if you're going to say north, you know, you are not talking about one tribe, you're talking about
but his statement was in the interest of the North. And if I may take you to one of the things he said in that statement, which perhaps you could address, is that he had accused this administration of impoverishing the people of the North, which is why he believes that a Northern candidate would understand the issues of the North. And while you say that you don't, you know, only push for the interest of the North, I know that the Arewa Consultative Forum holds engagements with candidates, especially presidential candidates. And the main focus of that, especially from last election they held, is to, you know, understand which of these candidates has the best interest of the North at hand. So could you clarify that?
You see, look, in the first place, this is 2004.
2024, you mean?
2024.
Yes.
And 2027 is still some distance from now. And if with our consultation and if we had discussed and say, okay, look, this is a common position, everybody knows that people are suffering. Everybody knows that the economy is biting, not just in the north, in every part of the country. People are complaining. And I'm sure the government is aware. So we will tell governments that things are not in good shape. We'll tell governments that people are suffering. We'll tell government that people are not feeding. We'll tell government that people are not even able to go to the offices or farms or wherever, or markets. And government should be sensitive to that. And I'm sure that that should not be the reason to start saying that we'll bring a particular candidate now. If close to the election, things haven't changed. It's not ACF that will decide. It's the people that will decide whether they want to vote for a particular candidate or not. And we don't want to get into that fray.
But you could influence that decision, I believe. The decisions of those people.
Well, you people influence decisions also.
Which is why,
as channel television,
which is why you hold those interactions.
Exactly. You people influence that. So,
I know,
as any individual in Nigeria, any organization, and it will certainly influence, because as citizens of the country, you can come out and say what you think is right or wrong. And but I'm saying that, look, as for ACF, we don't put our hands there. Like I say, we guide you into what we think is right. And that is after sitting down to discuss and analyze all the candidates and all the party manifestos and so on. We have misfortune in the country. Our political structure is still not how it should be. But the issue is that at least we can tell you that so candidate has ABCD and has these weaknesses and has these promises. This one has these objectives and has this and that and that. So go and think, go and judge for yourself.
Okay, that's great. But you know, you try to hold government accountable. And largely, from what I know about the ACF, it's in the interest of the North. You've also drawn attention to some of the lapses of this administration. And as you say, you do that with, or you've done that with other administrations. But from the standpoint of the ACF, I would like, and I'm sure a lot of people want to know this, the position of the national chairman who has been suspended on the state of affairs in the North with regard to this administration, does it align with your understanding as ACF?
The understanding that people are suffering, people are not in good shape and so on, yes, everybody, not just ACF, everybody align with that. But on the fact that we now want to determine who should come in as the next president, or whether we should support this president or not, is not the position of the ACF, and that's the point I'm making.
Beautiful.
And it's for, if people are suffering, we only need to tell government, look, people are suffering, and I'm sure they know. So it's left for them to remedy things before in the next election.
You know, while you say that the ACF doesn't take sides, I know that in the last build up to the last election, you had consultations with presidential candidates. And the reason, from what I gathered, because I had spoken with Dr. Hakeem Babamid at the time, who was a member of of the forum, and he said that the forum is trying to pick out the best candidate with the best interest of the North. And at the time, the Afenifere endorsed Tinubu, Yohaneze Ndigbo endorsed...
Afenifere did not endorse Tinubu.
Well, the reports say they did.
Well,
I know at the time they had factional issues.
Okay, well, maybe one faction,
fair enough.
Maybe one faction, Tinubu.
And then he had Yohaneze Ndigbo endorse Peter Obi.
Yes.
But you did not
Yes.
endorse anyone. So what was the idea?
You see, quite a number of the leadership of the Arewa Consultative Forum have served the country in various capacities. I was a minister during Obasanjo's time. And if you ask me, from my observation, to choose the best leader for the country from when we came to independence, I would say Obasanjo is one of them, because he was on the job, he was open, he was national, and so on. So sometimes when you have one of yours, it might not necessarily be the best for you. The Niger Delta had Jonathan as a president. They had a better deal during Umaru's tenure than during Jonathan's tenure. So that Jonathan was from Niger Delta didn't give it advantage. Buhari came from the north. And the north got the short end of the stick. So the issue is not from where you come from.
What does that mean?
The issue, what does that mean?
The short end of the stick under Buhari.
The north paid a lot. A lot of problems came up in the north and so on. The economic issues that were supposed to be resolved were not resolved. We had even the Al-Majri issue that was started being addressed by Jonathan. No matter how cosmetic it was, that there was an intention to address it. When Buhari came, it didn't continue. And quite a number of things.
But how did your forum react to that? How did the forum react to that? Because that was a drawback.
If you follow our outings, we have spoken severally. And sometimes what you media like is a controversial side of the whole thing.
No, it's not controversial. Let me explain something to you. If you know a crisis was brewing in your region, a president came in, made effort to address it, sort of put machinery in place to address it, another president comes in, doesn't follow that, and then the crisis festers. Is it not in your place to condemn that and decide that, because that is politics the world over, and with regard to governance, in your interest to say we will not support this person because his ideology doesn't align or help us?
Is it about condemnation or about making such? I mean, like maybe what is happening in this government is not about condemnation. We write and say, look, this is happening, or we think this can be done better, and so on. It's not about, if government does something condemnable, we condemn. But if somebody is supposed to do something right, we encourage him. And when you say we didn't talk when Buhari was,
No, I didn't say you didn't talk. I'm saying that
we didn't raise specific issues.
no, not specific issues. If all you do is talk and not galvanize your people away from a person who doesn't serve their interest,
SCF
that wouldn't solve anything, would it?
SCF doesn't have police, doesn't have soldiers, doesn't have departments, and so on.
But you have followers,
Yes, we have
and
followers.
you represent people.
We represent people.
So you think it's out of place to tell your people that this man is not helping us. We cannot continue to support him.
What will it help today if 1 month into Buhari's office you say he's not helping us, or one year into Tinubu's journey you say he's not helping us? You should help him to succeed. It's if he doesn't follow your advice, if he doesn't conform to that, then you can now, one of two things. You can come out and openly campaign against him, which is against the objective of the ACF, or you can now show indifference. If people ask you, say, well, why not bother about that? And then people can now read from that and say, okay, this is the right thing to do.
I want to ask you this very important question, which is with regard to the stance of the forum in not selecting, in not backing a particular candidate after interacting with them. Some fear that going forward, you may not get that kind of respect of candidates honoring your invitations because they want to be endorsed. So when they sit through a debate or interaction, they want to. I mean, the likes of Atiku refused to honor the invitation of the ACF in the last election. Kwankwaso, I beg your pardon.
Kwankwaso assumed that the forum was formed particularly to support Atiku. We told him no. Well, he refused to come. Whatever his reasons were, he didn't come. But Atiku came, the current president came,
Yes.
Peter Obi came, Prince Adebayo came, and Kola Abiola.
So what was the takeaway from all these interactions for you as a northerner, not
The
just
takeaway,
as a...
look, see, well, when you interact with candidates, there are northern concerns, and you give each candidate what you think are your concerns, and ask him how you will address them. Now, this is publicly done, so the public is conscious of what happened. Now, if the decision of the North is that they feel comfortable, or the influencers of the North feel comfortable with a particular candidate and they support him, it's not for us to say, no, don't support A or don't support B. But we provide the platform for people to see the candidates as they are, and also, after receiving our concerns, how they intend to address them.
I'm curious, do you hold these kinds of interactions with governorship candidates just ahead of their elections as well? Because we haven't seen that.
The last one was the first one, actually, with the presidents. We're now strengthening the chapters to be also able to address at national level. The reason is that, look, like I said, we're not partisan. So when all the candidates come and open up, and then people can see, because it's an open thing. So people can now say, okay, look, for our interest, in the aggregate of what we are looking for is in ABCD.
Okay. You know why I asked that question? Because most of the statements that we get from Arawa Consultative Forum seem to be targeted at the federal, and not much. I don't know how many statements you've released with regard to how state governments are running their affairs in the North, but it almost suggests that you hold the federal government to account more than you do the state governors. And I think, interestingly, this almost applies to even the other sociocultural groups, the Afenifere and the Ohanese Indig. But why is this so?
We've been engaging the Northern State Governors Forum, and we also engage the governors directly, individually. Now, while we see a problem, we intervene. For instance, when there was a problem in Taraba, and Benue, when there was this conflict between the Tiv and the Jukuns, or the Kuteb and the Jukuns, or Kuteb and Tiv, and so on. We were there. We interact with the governors and so on. And just before, just by the middle of the year, we had a discussion with the Northern State Governors Forum. And we're in constant touch with the chairman of the Governors Forum. And we tell him where we see their gaps, where we think they can cooperate and do certain things, where we think that their actions may be counterproductive and so on. So we do. Is why the national level is a bit different. If you look at the history of the ACF, or rather the history of Nigeria from colonialism, is this regional attacks that are the issues. So that's why probably when we come out on the issue at national level, people think we're talking about the national president only. And that's another discussion on our journey into nationhood. But the issue is that once that is corrected, then we'll be fine. And when we visited the president as ACF sometimes at the beginning of the year, and he also drew attention to our governors and said, well, fine, I will do my best, but call on your governors to do their best. So we look at states, we look at where there are gaps, and we tell them. When there are issues of, let's say, insecurity in particular states, or when the states are putting on their the vigilante groups or their small security groups and so on, we talk to governors and advise them appropriately.
This is a regional conversation, so I want you to feel free to advance the interest of the North. And the reason is, when I have the opportunity to speak with other regional leaders, I will speak with regard to their region. We understand that the northern part of the country is the most underdeveloped. And I would want you to explain from the forum's perspective why the North has remained largely underdeveloped over the years.
Well, it's a long journey. And I think let me first of all address the issue of the narrative that's been built, especially in the southern parts of the country, that the northern leaders did not do anything. And that is why the North is in the state it is. When you look at history of this country, the North has its own structure, has its own values, has its own civic culture. Then suddenly the colonialists came and just changed everything from day one. As a literate person, you become clearly illiterate at one pronouncement. If today Nigeria was able to go to Chinese, their characters, their books, their culture, and so on, it will take us a little time to catch up. As at 1924, there was no single primary school, secondary school in the North. They're just elementary schools. The first graduate from northern part of the country, Russell Aliu Barrow Dikko, was in 1939. As at 1939, there are people whose grandparents in the South were graduates, not just parents. So the second graduate was in 1950. So as at 1950, in the whole geographical North, there were only 2 graduates. When Usman Farouk took over the governance of northwestern states, Sokoto, Kebbi, Zamfara, and Niger, there was only a single graduate in the whole civil service of that region, Alhaji Liman Dogo. So people are not looking at the starting point. In 1957, when we're talking about self-governance, there were 294 senior civil servants in the North. Out of them, 211 were expatriates. Only 83 were black. Out of the 83, 42 were Igbos, Yorubas, other tribes from the South, Ghanaians, and Sierra Leoneans. So 41 were from the North. And out of these 41, 21 were products of one school, the Anglican school in Musasa. So this was the story of the North as at just before independence. Today, and I can be quoted, there are more professors today in northern Nigeria in real terms than there are professors in South Africa as a country. So it's not as if we have not moved from where we are. We have moved. As at 1960, when we got independence, over 90% of the children were out of school. And that's why the government had to have a deliberate effort to push education. And most of us went to schools, on scholarships from the moment we entered secondary school up to when we graduated. So these people are the ones that today are responsible for what we have. And we have moved from that position of 0% to that. And secondly, the Western education came with a tag, Christianity. The civic culture in the North was basically a Muslim civic culture. So it's like an incursion into that culture. So there was resistance. Up to this moment, there is still resistance to Western education. So as much as the leaders try, there are limits to how much they can push, but they are pushing. And I salute the leaders of the North for what they have achieved so far. I was the first to go to school in my family. I was the first to go to secondary school. I was the first to graduate. In our family, we are from the extended family, that we're over 3,000 now. And I'm not sure that there are up to 20, 30 that have not gone to school. Maybe those in my age or above my age. Everybody is probably a graduate or is struggling to be graduates. So you see, it's a track that we moved. So when you look at the history of Nigeria, you forget where you didn't start from the same start line. And so is an issue of catching up. And when I've been in governing council of universities. I was in the governing council of Adekunle Ajasin University and on the University of Science and Technology. Before then, I was on Abubakar Tafawa University. And I can see the content and the quality and so on. The North is not exactly in that respect lagging behind when it comes to education. But we need to catch up. We need to do more than we're doing. And we're talking to our governors, invest more in education. We're talking to our ulama. We're talking to every community leaders, look, drag people into schools and so on, and especially skills and so on. So the issue is not that the North isn't that bad. If you look at where they start from, and when we're talking about 1960 independence, yes, 60 years, but you also have a mindset that you have to also address. So, and I want Nigerians to understand this narrative that is going around that Northern leaders have not done anything and so on, trying to instigate the young ones to think that their leaders have not done anything. Go and see, look at where we started from and look at where we are today. So it's not true.
But you say it's an education problem, right?
That's education.
So address this narrative that because you talked about the resistance to Western education.
Yes.
So because I know that recently the governors have started, trying to rejig the system such that Western education will be further promoted. But address this narrative of Western education being accepted by the elites in the North and not.
It's not that the masses also are not accepting it, but I'm saying that those that understand the benefit of Western education are the ones now that are the ambassadors in their own communities to convince people to do that. Now, as development is going on, there's another challenge also we face. That people go to school, graduate, leave the farms, leave the cattle they had, and so on, graduate, and there has no job. So people are saying, why go to school? And that's why a lot of rethink is going on okay, school, mix it with Islamic education, mix it with skills, so that when people come out. So it's a process, it's a dynamic.
I want to draw your attention to something. The United Nations resident and humanitarian coordinator in Ukraine now, Matthias Schmale, who was resident coordinator in Nigeria for 2 years, I think 2002 to 2004 thereabout, recently said that $1.5 billion was spent on the humanitarian crisis in the North. That crisis still persists. Does it seem to you like that amount of money has gone into the North?
I don't know what they addressed when you say humanitarian crisis. If you are buying jeeps and trucks and food warmers and so on, well, I haven't seen that. There are crises around the North. There's a crisis in the northeast corner, the Boko Haram, the bandits now, the other farmers clash in the North Central and so on. So there are crises all over. And I think every sane mind should be concerned about those crises. And I think that whether the United Nations 1.2 billion is being deployed or not is not even material. What is material is what we're doing internally to resolve the matter. the federal government, I believe, is trying. The state governments are cooperating. Is an all affair. I can tell you one of our major concerns is that the problem in the north is not just a northern problem; it's Nigeria's problem. If the north has more than half of the population and about 80% of the landmass, they should better be stable for the country to be stable. So our concern is not just addressing the issues, but addressing the issues, looking at it also from the dimension that is going to affect national stability.
Okay, absolutely. Let's stay with security issues now, because I know that you've been criticized for, speaking more openly about the Tinubu administration, but you say that you also advanced your position to the Buhari administration. And this back and forth with regard to insecurity has continued. We now have a new terror group. So I think it would be fair to ask you, from a northern standpoint, what do you see with regard to the fight against insecurity? Are we making progress, especially with a new administration in place?
I think we have moved from, we've shifted a bit. When Buhari came, he de-escalated the Boko Haram's insurgency. And I think the current administration is also doing well in the northwest. Now, the security issues, it's an organic thing. As you address it, you have to keep also monitoring and doing other things, because there are some pockets of escalations in the northeast recently. So it's not for government to say that we have solved the problem. It's for government to say, look, we are on top of it and continues to do that. When we say, we don't just come out and criticize the Tinubu administration. If there's a particular issue that arises, we'll talk about it. And like I said, that's why we set up the security committee to look at things from a broader perspective, regional perspective, and also national perspective, and also the West African sub-region. The North is exposed to a number of states, almost the whole of Sahel. The whole of Sahel, it tends towards, moving into northern Nigeria if things go right or wrong. So we have to be conscious of what happens in Benin Republic, in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Chad, Cameroon, and so on, and even Sudan. So we are conscious of that, and like I said, not talk of the other parts of Nigeria. So the issue of security and the vulnerability of northern Nigeria to Nigerian states is what is of concern. We have borders that are so wide and not manned. We have borders where families live on both sides and so on. So you can see the complexities we have. And I believe the government will do its best. You said the Lakurawa, the new group that came in, we are the first to scream officially in the papers to say, look, government must nip it in the bud before it becomes a really terror group. Initially, they are not exactly a terror group. They're just an extremist group. So, but they could become a terror group just like Boko Haram started and become. So this is the time when government should take an action to address it.
But the state governors, do they have a role to play with regard to these border communities? And attached to that, we have to talk about the ungoverned spaces in that region.
Yes, it's not just the border communities. Most of spaces in the north are ungoverned. So the ungoverned spaces are really a soul in the flesh of the country. So it's not just the border communities. But you see, the problem with our structure is that the federal government is in charge of
security,
the border security, and so the state government will have to use a soft approach to ensure that they get enough intelligence that will fit into the government. So I think they are playing a role. They don't control the police, even if they are called chief security officers. They don't control the army, but I think they will do their best. So whatever, there should be a good collaboration between the state governors in the north and the federal government. Whichever party they belong to, they must collaborate.
National security is way more important. Another thing that the NEC meeting of your forum raised the alarm over is the policies of this government, which is biting hard, of course, across the nation. Well, perhaps you could speak to some of these policies, and I would probably just start it by asking you if you've taken a look at, if the forum has taken a look at this tax reform bills that's generating controversy around the country, because I know that even northern governors, even the neck of the has also said, stop it for now.
Yes, we share the same. Actually, we're in touch with the Northern Governors Forum, Northern State Governors Forum, in that respect. And our position is the same as their position. One, the things are biting so hard that this is not the time to increase any taxation in any form. People should respond to treatment first before they start getting other injuries. I think that the government should just slow down on that.
Have you seen the bills?
Yeah, I have. The issue of increasing VAT from this point to this point, this percentage to this percentage, is in the bill. Okay? And this is not the time to do that. That is one. Two, the harmonization, yes, it might be okay, but when you remove TED fund, you remove Naseni, you remove, which is the other body, and then you now concentrate, you skew them out, and then you narrow the money into students' loan. And those bodies, I don't know if you visit higher institutions, most universities, polytechnics, and college education actually survive halfway on TED fund. So by the time you take that out, even when students pay, I'm not sure they'll be able to do as well as TED fund is doing. So I think it needs to be reviewed. Government can come up with policies, they must have thought through it, but I think there's a need to review it properly and ensure that you don't shortchange one side from another. Again, without sounding unnationalistic, the beneficiaries of the students' loan will be an issue. So there must be some equity in the distribution.
How will it be an issue?
There will be an issue where if it's tilted towards one side, and that's why there must be equity in giving out the students' loan.
There's no equity as it stands now.
We don't know yet. It's just starting. So there must be equity.
Well, if you visit the NEL Fund site, they provide details of the distributions.
I haven't studied that, so I'm just saying there should be. Possibly there is, but I mean there should be. Now back to taxes. The issue of VAT. The way the VAT is being shared now is skewed in favor of Lagos. Let me be clear about that. All banks, if I make a transaction now, a bank transaction, the base of the transaction is in Lagos. So all transactions and banks are declared in Lagos, and then the VAT now comes to the source. If I import something, it goes to the port. It's declared there, not at the point of consumption. If you make phone calls, the telephone companies are mostly based in Lagos. The VAT is collected there. So when you now say, when you now skew towards source or derivation, then you find that all the other parts of the country would not get anything because the headquarters of these companies are in Lagos. So there must be a way, either that they now adjust, to capture, transactions.
Specific transactions?
Specific transactions or consumptions where they take place and pay. Otherwise, the way it is now, it will be unfair to the remaining part of the country, not just the north, but especially the north.
They look at it from I think I listened to a member of the presidential committee that is on these tax reforms, and one of the things he said is that this is supposed to be some form of motivation to the governors in the north to improve their revenue generation.
Yes, you see, you can't take everything from me and tell me you're motivating me. I'm not saying that we need to be favored. No, let transactions be registered in the base where they take place. If I make a phone call, let the VAT be paid in Abuja. If somebody makes a phone call in Guyu, in Adamawa State, let it be paid there. You understand? If I initiate a transaction and in Borno, let it be paid there. But not all the transactions happening are
But that's about the same thing with regard to these reform bills. So it's all about restructuring the bills to ensure that the VAT is paid in the state where these transactions occur. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's another aspect of that, and this is one of those things that have been in the public space for a while, with regard to tax sharing, where, for example, alcohol is banned in the North, but the alcohol tax that is generated in other parts of the country is shared with the North. Do you think that should be restructured as well, such
Are you
that...
saying there's no consumption of alcohol in the North?
Is there?
Is there none?
I'm asking, you're a Northerner.
No, I know there is. There is consumption of alcohol.
Alcohol is allowed to be consumed in the
No,
North?
it's not allowed. What I'm saying is that where a state says they are not interested in consumption of alcohol, so separate alcohol taxes and take it to those states that did it.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking you.
Yeah, that's okay.
That particular...
If you take alcohol, if you take gambling, all this lottery thing, then take them to the states where they do. But then what is here? Give what is here to us.
But
That's no problem there.
But that requires further engagement, I believe, such that
Further
these bills
engagement
are
and further
restructured.
segregation, and they must put a structure that will be able to segregate those things. Then you can now have this derivative and so on. Otherwise, when you cook, I don't eat pork, but then you have a pot where there's shaki, there's beef, there's pork inside and so on, there's fish, and you side me the stew. I will give up. I can tell you that if in my state they said they don't want alcohol sold there, and they said there's tax on alcohol, we'll take it away, no problem.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about structure now. But before we go into that, I want to hear from you with regard to this League of Northern Democrats.
Okay.
We talk about the partnership you have with them, because it's been championed by a former Minister of Education and former Governor of Kano State, Ibrahim Shekarau.
Did you say partnership?
I don't know. It's there. One of the news we have is that there's a partnership with the forum
League of Northern Democrats.
ahead of the Northern Presidency 2027. So you might want
The
to...
League of Northern Democrats paid us a visit,
Okay.
and they told us their objectives, and they are Northerners. Some of them individually are members of the ACF. So it's a Northern organization, so we'll keep relating with them.
They want to determine who becomes the president.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the position that you're
Of
aware of.
Northern, yes, that's the position we're aware of.
Okay.
And what we say, they're trying to unite the political forces in the North. Because I can see also in their own case, there are people from various political parties in the league. So if they are promoting a president that they think they're comfortable with politically, well,
You will dissociate yourself from it.
yeah, we will collaborate as a Northern group, But if they say, let's vote for A, B, C, D, or let's vote Mr. A, we'll tell them, no, we're not part of that. But if they say, look, the criteria we're choosing is A, B, C, D, we can agree on the criteria.
Okay.
But it's a new group, and it's a Northern group, so we cannot dissociate ourselves from them. We will accommodate them like we accommodated other groups. We have a number of youth groups and so on that we talk to.
Okay.
So we'll see how far they're going to carry their own objective. They're just starting, so let's see how they go.
Fair enough. This League of Northern Democrats also spoke with regard to the calls for parliamentary system of government. They think that there should be a modification of this presidential system of government. I'm sure you're conversant with the wide calls for parliamentary system of government. So perhaps the forum has taken a look at it and maybe has a position.
The first invitation we had in that respect was from the National Assembly. The House of Representatives have a committee, or had a committee, that's supposed to address the issue of movement to parliamentary system. We listen to them. And a political committee will now review that. Because we were in the parliamentary system, looking at the complexities of our country, we moved to presidential system. I feel a little trial here and there, we realize that it has its own encumbrances. So I think it's the political committee that will sit down and review that. We don't have a fixed position in that respect for now. And but a lot of opinions going around about the return to parliamentary system. It has its own implication. So we wait for the committee that's charged with politics to come up with the outcome.
Just before we say goodbye on the show today, you talked about how good the Obasanjo administration was, which you served under.
I didn't say that.
You said it was.
I said a president.
The president?
Yes.
Well, it is his administration.
I worked with him.
Okay.
What I know, and I had said it before, is that he was one president that as his minister, I didn't need any protocol to see him. So if there's an issue that concerns this country or any part of my work, I'll just place a call and say, I'm coming to see the president. In fact, even if I just walk into the villa and I ask if the president free, I could see him, you know. And if I give the president a memo tonight or a document tonight, and he says, come back tomorrow, I'll come back and the memo is addressed. So he was on top of the job. But subsequently, I understand that ministers can't even see the president. They go and see a chief of staff. So that's a point of concern for me. And whatever it is, the Obasanjo would address an issue. Rightly or wrongly, he would address it immediately. You know, he never shied away from his responsibility. So that's what I'm saying. After working with him and looking at the other presidents, I could see that, look, there's somebody on top. Because I also interact with ministers. And I know some of them cannot see their principals now. So this is a point of concern for the country.
So from that, let's talk about leadership, because everything rises and falls with leadership. Look at the leadership of this country over the years, since the return to military rule, and perhaps assess where we may have gone wrong. Because the analysts say that this country hasn't developed at the pace at which it should have developed, considering its resources.
I think what we got wrong is the political parties. The political parties should be better structured than they are now. People should vote parties based on their own manifestos and ideologies and so on, and not candidates. But now, what we have in Nigeria is the candidates that matter. And not only that, it's not only in Nigeria that happens, you know, because I can see even in the US, some Democrats voted for Trump. But the point I'm making here is that, look, if you have a party that has a manifesto or some ideology or some position on certain issues, based on that, you can now say, okay, look, we can do that. But our parties are so weak. That's why people move from one party to another without shame, you know, and it really doesn't matter. So if we can get the political parties right, I think the polity will change, because we'll be competing on what we can do for the people and not what favor I can get from the president.
You know, some say the quality of these politicians also would come to play. So as a northerner, perhaps you talk about, you know, the sort of leadership mentorship that is ongoing in the North, if it is, and how, you know, it prepares the next generation for better leadership going forward. Because I recall that I spoke with the governor of Bauchi State on the issue of local governments, and he said that his concern in the North is, if you throw open the local government chairmanship position in the South, the quality of people you would get to run for the office would be greater than the quality of people you would get to run in the North. I don't know if you agree to that, but perhaps it speaks to leadership mentorship in the North and education, of course.
You know, just a mindset. Local governments don't have to be run by young people. Young people should come to National Assembly and state assemblies. Local governments should be run by mature people like myself. After leaving my job as a minister or as a governor, come and take up the local government chairmanship.
Why?
And so on. Because then you are now at home as you're aging. Then you will now be able to look at things from mature perspective, from experience, and make sure that whatever it is done within your community is done rightly. I'm not saying that young people should not also contest, but I'm saying that we should be pushing the younger elements and have a mix at the national level and so on. But that's not why the issue is. The issue is not that you will not have competent people to run for local government offices. The issue is the governors all over the country has stifled the local governments in such a way that you have to be their boy to be able to be a local government chairman. Their boy meaning you have to sit down on the floor, you have to take their instructions and so on. And some people who have gotten to a certain level in life
can't go and do that.
Will not want to do that.
Like you.
Of course, I mean, I can sit down with my governor and discuss, but I will not sit down on the floor to say that I don't get it and so on. So the issue is the mindset. But because democracy is a process, I believe we'll get out of this.
Well, you didn't speak to the leadership mentorship in the North. Is there anything like that ongoing?
It's part of in the ACF we have 19 committees. And one of these committees is addressing the issue of youth mentorship, not just in leadership, in businesses, it's an incubation committee. And ACF will be 25 next year. And these are some of the things that we have reviewed to make sure that they are effective after the first quarter of a century. And I'm sure that maybe within the next 2-3 years, we would have seen something happening in terms of the mentorship issue.
Mr. Murtala Aliyu, thank you very much for coming on Political Paradigm.
Thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have on Political Paradigm. I've been speaking with Mr. Murtala Aliyu, who is a former minister and a Secretary General of the Yarawa Consultative Forum. If you'd like to catch this episode and others, simply go to YouTube and search Political Paradigm or go to channelstv.com. I'm Terry Kumi. Goodbye.
Thank you for having stayed to the end of this very video. I'm glad you made it to the end. Please, can I ask you just for one more favor? Could you just give this video a thumb up? And please, have you subscribed to this channel? If you haven't, Biko, please, could you just subscribe to the channel and tap the notification button so anytime I drop a video, you will be first to be notified. Thank you, and may God bless you. See you on the next one.